Previously on Weather the Storm.
All right, Paul, so we just got back from a significant hail event out in the truck chasing these storms. We were able to get this deck out into the storm. How do we know that this has hail damage on it? I'm Derek Klein, CEO of HailTrace. Founded HailTrace back in 2010.
My name is Paul Casari. Been with Atlas for about 10 years. I'm the Director of Product Management and Business Development.
I'm Allie Burt. I'm the Executive Assistant at HailTrace. I also do all the photo and video stuff.
Chris White. I'm a meteorologist here at HailTrace.
Today looks like it could be a really crazy day, especially for tornadoes. I'm seeing this back southeasterly flow with this dry line that's just anchored up on the triple point in northern Kansas. And the way this jet stream is ejecting out, you know, I feel like we have to get to Wichita, Kansas. However, there's a conditional threat that we could have some pretty bad storms in Oklahoma too. So it's going to be our job today to make sure that we keep the public safe with doing storm chasing for the television station here in Oklahoma. But if those storms don't form, we've got to get to Wichita because there's a real likelihood that we'll see a tornado in Wichita today. It's late April and we're anticipating a pretty big risk day, or at least a potential for a pretty big risk day. It's not one of those days where we're anticipating like this major tornado outbreak to happen, but we think there's a chance that we could have there could be a decent tornado that could occur. It was kind of a two-part day because we chase storms for our TV station here locally. Sabrina and Damon, if you guys want my stream, we're tracking a tornado near Newton. What that means is we have to be prepared to cover our local area. And that's a life safety for Oklahoma City, in that if there's tornadoes, we film those tornadoes and get it back to the public live so they can see where that tornado is. So on April 29th, when we're doing our forecast here in the morning, we're seeing, you know, we need to be in Wichita, Kansas. Like everything says, you need to be in Wichita, Kansas if you want to see a tornado today. We know that we can't go to Kansas because there's a threat in Oklahoma as well. The threat in Oklahoma though was conditional, and what a conditional threat means is we had really strong instability and we had really strong wind shear, all the conditions that you need to make a tornado, but we had a lid on the atmosphere. And so unless the storms were able to unless the clouds were able to work their way through that lid, we would get zero storms. You know, one of the most fascinating parts of being a storm chaser is really understanding the complexity of what it takes to make a tornado. And when you're out storm chasing, you get to watch these things, and some of them you can't visually see, but you get to watch these things take place and unfold right in front of you. It's an extremely complex set of events that occur, and there's several of them that we don't even know about. There's several parts to making tornadoes that are still unknown. And that's the reason why we can't look at a storm and say, yeah, this one's gonna make a tornado and this other one is not. Because there's so many things occurring inside of these storms that we just don't understand yet. But generally, to have the ability to understand conditions are favorable for tornadoes, that science is, we can do a pretty good job with that now. And so what it takes to be able to produce tornadoes, we look for a few different things for that to happen. So at least some key things need to happen to be able to make a tornado. So one of the first things that's super important is the ability to have lift. We have to be able to have air lifting, and that can occur in a couple of different ways. One of the ways is we can have what's called orographic lift. Orographic lift comes off of a hill or a mountain. In the plains, we see that happen more typically in the panhandles of Oklahoma and Texas, off of what we call the cap rock. The elevation goes from a few thousand feet to 3,000 or 4,000 feet out there, and so that air flowing up that creates lift, and so it moves the air up. So that's one way we can get lift. Another way is we can get lift is through a front. So a cold front or a dry line or a warm front, the way that they plow through, they create lift in the atmosphere so they can push the air up. The last thing that we'll see is we'll get a storm system that will come out. And the way that storm system will come out, it will kind of squash the air together. The flow will cause lift on its own, and it'll also create cool air aloft, which creates an instability axis in the atmosphere. So we have warm air down here, cold air up here. That doesn't work. So this warm air wants to lift through that warm air. And a lot of times it can take all three of those lift conditions to create the lift that we need to create a thunderstorm. So Sometimes it takes two. Sometimes you can get it with just one of them. Once we have the lift, we have the ability to create a thunderstorm. Now we have to have the ability to create enough shear inside of that thunderstorm to make spin, right? And that happens, it starts out it really starts out at the surface at different layers, but what we want to do is we want to see the wind change direction as we go up in the atmosphere. So if at the ground where you're standing we have a southeast wind, we want to see that wind turn to southwest several hundred or several thousand feet up in the atmosphere. Okay, so as we go up, we want to see that wind pivot and turn up. The other thing that we want to see is, in addition to that direction, is we want to see that wind speed increase as well. So we want to see it go from 30 knots at the surface to 50, and then all the way up to the jet stream level, where sometimes we'll see 100 knots or even stronger than that at times. And so that's called our directional shear and our speed shear. So we want to see both of those things kick into place. What happens is, in kind of an easy to understand way, is that wind shear creates this tunnel of air that spins. It's a horizontal tunnel of air. And then as that thunderstorm forms, we've talked about how you have the inflow spot of the storm and you have the exhale spot of the storm. Well, that inflow spot is where that air lifts up. So it goes underneath that tunnel of air that's been created, that's spinning, right? It goes in and it pulls up on it, and it pulls it up into the storm. And as it pulls it up into that storm, it tightens that tube of spinning air, which creates it to spin faster. And then a few other things happen around that storm with inflow and the way the air moves around that storm to where it cinches it up, which makes it spin faster and faster and faster until it spins fast enough that it creates a tornado. Now there's a lot of other things that will occur inside of that cloud, but simply put, it's that wind shear and that instability or that lift. When we put all those pieces together and they fit right, we create tornadoes. And so we posted up near Lamont, Oklahoma on this day, and we sat around and we waited and we threw some rocks and we found some fences to throw some rocks at.
It's a lot of rock throwing in storm chasing. People don't realize that. It's a lot of rock throwing.
Yeah, you get pretty good at like finding a 1 or 2 inch fence pole and standing across the street and throwing a rock and hitting that fence pole. That's what we do a lot of, and we did that for a good, I don't know, 3 hours probably.
Yeah, at least.
We were at target location. I remember sitting on the back of the tailgate of the truck.
Hat got blown off under it, and a semi rolled over it. Remember that?
Oh yeah,
My
your
hat got blown off right into the highway, and right as the semi was coming by, ran it over like a rabbit.
Couldn't have planned the timing out better on that. Anyway, so we knew the threat was conditional. The clouds got kind of tall. I think there might have even been a sprinkle, but they just never could produce a storm. And so as we get to about 7:30, 7:45, the sun starts to go down, the temperature starts to cool off a little bit, and those clouds that we were wondering if they would form a storm, they begin to shrink. And so we get a message from the news station, hey guys, next threat is 10:30 p.m. when this squall line is going to come into the state. We need you at I-35 in northern Oklahoma at 10:30 p.m. when the squall line goes in. And I think Chris and I, we both instantly look at each other and we go, we got time to get to Wichita.
Yes, that was the first, because we were kind of moping the whole day, having to be stuck up there in Lamont. At first we were happy, because we thought we was going to get stuck in the southern part of the state and have no chance to make it to Kansas at all. And then they said, we want y'all to go to Lamont. And I was like, oh man, that's really a good choice. It's just a hop over the border there to get to Wichita.
Yeah, and so we'd been actively watching the radar, and Wichita hadn't had any storms yet either. They just started, there was a couple of blips on radar. We're probably an hour drive from Wichita at this point, and so we jump in the truck and we immediately, V-line for Wichita, Kansas. And there were 3 small cells that were going up. We decide that we're just going to kind of work up the line on them and kind of, so we pull up on the southern one, and I remember it looked impressive as far as structure. It wasn't strong yet. It was just kind of a moderate rain shower with a little bit of lightning. But you could see the tower. It kind of had this twist look to it. And anytime you see that, you know that it's strong shear and it's spinning. The mesocyclone in the storm is really, really strong. But there's a severe storm, and it's actually dropping some decent hail, and we are HailTrace.
That's what we ended up trying to go after too, because once we got to Wichita, we were all kind of like, man, well, this storm's kind of looks like, but I don't know if we got a tornado. So we immediately get to the side where the hail is supposed to be, and it turns out it's an LP storm, a low precipitation supercell, and doesn't have any hail in it at all. And we're just like, well, crap, we're not going to see a tornado or hail today.
Yeah, and we pull off the highway. I think we decided we were gonna just kind of look at radar. We're gonna kind of set and just see if anything's gonna happen. And I think it did start hailing a little bit. It was like some nickel-sized hail or something, some raindrops. And we get out to go pick up some of the hailstones, and we look up above our head, and there's literally this funnel cloud it's a horizontal, spinning the wrong direction. It's interesting to look at radar. You can see why that happened, but so it's stretched across above our head. It's really, really long, like it's probably a couple miles long, maybe. I don't know. It was a really long funnel. It just kind of looked like a snake in the sky, and you could see it just spinning sideways. And I mean, we probably watched that thing for 3 or 4 or 5 minutes, just kind of like, and directly over our head. No threat of a tornado, but just directly over our head, and we're just kind of watching it and just.
Yeah, it's like sticking out of like the storm itself.
It was mesmerizing. Yeah.
It wasn't, it kind of came out of the storm, and it wasn't attached like, to the base like a tornado would be or anything like that. It was just kind of got ejected out of the storm, was spinning around in the sky.
Yeah, we stood outside, I think, to kind of like look at the hail, and I went ahead and set up all the GoPros, quite frankly by chance, because I don't think we were expecting the monster we were about to see, and I was just like, I'll just go ahead and get the GoPros running. And it was a few minutes later that thing dropped and we were gone. But like the thing above us was just, I've never seen anything like it. So it was just mesmerizing, literally above our heads. And I was like, are we okay? I don't really know what this is. Like, is this gonna like suck me up, or like, are we okay here? And they're like, yeah, it's fine. I'm like, okay, I guess we're fine then.
So we're outside watching this funnel. There are no tornado warnings. It might have been a severe thunderstorm warning, maybe. I don't remember exactly. And I look down and I see a funnel, not the one that we're looking at, on the storm that we passed that we said was really pretty. I look down and there is a funnel halfway to the ground with no tornado warning in place. And I mean, it just has the classic, I'm gonna make a tornado look. You can't really tell if it's gonna be super strong or not. But I think the bigger concern was there was no tornado warning in effect. Nobody was at fault for not having a tornado warning. If you were in a room, there was no way to know that this storm was capable of producing a tornado, because the way that radar works, it analyzes the direction and the speed that the water drops move. And it wasn't raining under this storm where the tornado was. So there was nothing for the radar to analyze the wind direction or speed on. And so it could not see any shear underneath that storm. And so because we're on TV, we immediately relay in, hey, even though this isn't our coverage area, we still take this stuff seriously. And so we relay in, hey, there's a funnel halfway to the ground, and it's still continuing to go down to the ground. And all this happens in a series of about 15 seconds. TV stuff can move extremely fast. I still remember my first day chasing for TV. I kind of got thrown into the storm chase that particular day. A lot of their storm chasers had lost their windshields in hail the day before. And so they were like, hey, we need you to chase today. Can you chase? And I was like, sure, I'm gonna go chase anyways. I said, so how does this work? Like, if I see a tornado, what do I do? And they said, if you say tornado, we'll have you on the air in 4 seconds. Hey, Sabrina and Damon, if you guys want my stream, we're tracking a tornado near Vigo, or a potential funnel cloud. Here you go. I'll put it on the stream for you. And I was like, wow, that's impressive. And literally later that day, I'm like, I got a tornado, and they had me on the air within 4 seconds. And so that same process was able to unfold. Even though this is Wichita, not our viewing area, not an area that we covered, we were able to say, I almost have a tornado. There is no tornado warning. We're able to get that relayed into the National Weather Service to get that tornado warning issued. You know, it's not the best lead time that they would typically want, but it still gave the people in Andover 3 to 4 minute warning time that, hey, there's about to be a tornado on the ground. You know, while we see this, Chris, a super veteran storm chaser, is already driving us. I don't even have to tell him what road to take. He's like, I'm just gonna pick a road that drives in that direction, and he's gone. You know, I mean, so I've got this relayed in. Allie's got all the videos and cameras going, and we're off. And that's when it got exciting. You know, I remember, you know, Chris and I we're talking back and forth. We're trying to analyze the situation. You know, we had 2 options. There was, you know, option 1 was, you know, kind of play it a little safe and stay up to the north out of the damage path and just kind of trickle up here with it and let it kind of come to us. Or option 2 was to be aggressive and drive at it and see how close we could get. But we knew to do option 2, we'd have to be able to drive past the tornado and turn around.
Yep, flippy U.
And we'd have to beat it. And that's with, you know, red lights, optional traffic.
Because people didn't know the tornado was on the ground. They were still driving directly towards the tornado like we were. But we were trying to beat it, and they were just driving casually like they were going home from work and stuff like that, come home from the store or whatever. Yeah, a lot of people, especially here in the plains, you know, it's not uncommon for people in the plains when there's severe weather, it's just a thunderstorm. Like we don't have to worry about that. So we wait for the tornado sirens to go off to let us know. And so, you know, they might have just started to sound, but then it's, you know, where is it? Or, you know, I've heard that. That's the 3rd time this year I've heard that. So, you know, we probably take it a little for granted sometimes, you know, how bad our storms can get. Or how safe we are.
Country, yeah. And so, but we eventually get through. We're able to weave our way through the traffic and get into position. And now we see the tornado coming at us, and it's, you know, it's kind of this race to basically beat it right across the road. And we beat it by probably about a 1/4 mile, I would say.
Yeah, that'd be about right.
That. Yep. So we crossed the highway a 1/4 mile before the tornado does, or about 2 minutes before the tornado actually crosses the road, and that was Chris driving pretty aggressively. Yep. So as soon as we got south of it, we knew the tornado was going to pass behind us. We then turned around and then eased our way up towards where the tornado would cross. In fact, video doesn't do distance very good justice. It always looks really far away. I would say we were somewhere around 1,000 feet from where this tornado crossed the road. And what was crazy is it went from probably an EF1 type tornado to an EF3 type tornado right as it crossed the road. And you see it remove roofs of houses and pull them back across the road.
Lots of debris in there.
Lots of debris, power flashes.
Full-size RV gets sucked out across the road, all the way across the road into the house across the street.
These little vortices in the tornado so you have your main tube, and then you have like this helix vortice that comes around the outside and actually bubbles and snaps. Just impressive, super powerful type stuff that only violent tornadoes would do. And it happened within seconds of it crossing the road right in front of us. And we're there videoing the whole thing. It's streaming live on TV as we're doing that. And it was one of the more intense, close intercepts that we've had of a tornado.
Yeah, and I think it was because it was so visual too. You know, like you were saying before, you know, there's like 0 precipitation wrapped around this thing. There's no gray rain behind the tornado, you know, kind of hiding the color of it. The structure of the tornado is all clear around it, you know, so we had good contrast, like right there for us to see everything. And
yeah, the experience of it, looking out the window, I mean, it felt like it was just right here. Like it really felt like you look up and it's just like right, you know, above our heads almost, like off to the side. And that's definitely for me like the closest I've ever been, you know, and it was Mother Nature is very good at humbling you, I think,
Oh, yeah.
sometimes, of just kind of like, just watch and see what I can do.
Yeah, it makes you feel small.
Yeah, it
real
does. It
quick
makes
out
you
there.
feel very insignificant, but not in a bad way, I don't think. It makes you feel like, oh, I need to remember to be humble before, you know, whatever you're going to do.
Even though I really like seeing tornadoes in person and everything, I really hate seeing them go through towns. I'd much rather get a tornado that the world doesn't care about because it tore up a cow pasture or a wheat field and everything, tore some power lines down. I hate seeing tornadoes go through populated areas. You know, even when we're doing my job and everything, we're filming, you know, mapping the tornadoes and all like that. You know, on our maps, you can see what structures you're mapping across and everything. And you come across churches, high schools, you know, and it just, I hate seeing that stuff. It just bugs me because I know it's ruining people's days, you know, months, maybe even their life, you know, if it gets bad enough. You know, they lost their home. They're probably not going to might not be able to rebuild there because of insurance or whatever. And they have to move, they got to relocate, you know, or rebuild, and that could take a year or two to rebuild and everything. So I really don't like seeing them go through the cities.
Yeah, I think for me, whenever it crossed the road, I remember thinking not necessarily of my reaction, but the people that were, you know, still on the other side of it in the intersection, like, because we did see an RV like roll across the road, and I'm just thinking, man, they must be so scared. Like, I didn't feel scared in that moment because I have trust in my team and their ability to do what they need to do, so that way I can do what I need to do. But man, you just think about those people who are just casually driving, not aware, and I remember distinctly thinking, like, I bet they're very afraid right now. And like, that's not a good feeling to think about.
It seemed like, if I remember right, a lot of those people turned off to the east or the west into the neighborhood that the tornado moved directly towards, you know, into and all like that, because it was really moving, what, like about 60 degrees or so, like north-northeast?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And everything, those people were all turning off to the west, going home, you know, right in their house was right there in the path. So their neighborhood definitely got, you know, if they didn't get hit directly, they got affected, the neighborhood got affected.
So what's interesting about tornadoes is how fast the wind speed increases from really light winds to just kind of windy to, oh my gosh, we're done, right? And it happens really close to the tornado. So you can be, you know, like we were to this tornado that's producing winds 140, 150 miles an hour. We're only 1,000 feet from it, and the wind is blowing 20 miles an hour where we're at. And as you get closer to it, we probably could have got another 500 feet closer to it, and they might have reached 40 miles an hour. Once you get to the tornado itself, so we're talking, you know, 100 feet from the tornado, all of a sudden the wind goes from 40 to 150, and that happens instantly. It's extremely intense, but it's only right inside of that cone of that tornado. Some bigger tornadoes, when you get your mile and a half wide, massive tornadoes, sometimes they get a little bit windier, a little further from that. So it's not uncommon to see some 100-mile-per-hour winds, 110, 120, maybe even 130-mile-per-hour winds in some of the air flowing, some of the jets that flow around the outside of that tornado. But especially those real compact, I like to call them grinder tornadoes. It's literally right inside of the cone, and that's the only spot that you'll experience intense wind. Now, you do have to watch for debris. It can launch some debris out of it, so you don't want to get too close, but 1,000 feet is usually pretty good.
What was your reaction to this particular tornado? Oh, God.
Wow. That was my first, that's usually how my
I think
thoughts
that's,
go when I'm
I'm
on
pretty sure that's
tornadoes.
what you said too,
Yeah,
right as it crosses the road here.
uh-huh.
I think there's a whole bunch of wow.
Wow,
I think
man.
you just said that over and
Yeah,
over
yeah.
again.
I will say, I'm like, whenever we're chasing, I'm not ever afraid of the actual tornado or the event. It's like traffic or potential other drivers who are trying to get away or maybe not making the best decisions or going under overpasses. So for me, it's like, you know, it's being more aware of like the people, you know, around that are trying to deal with it.
Next time, our team discusses their unique role in local relief efforts, following a particularly damaging storm.
We had over $45,000 in the GoFundMe, and we knew that we couldn't just show up with fistfuls of cash. We knew that, you know, people needed clothing, they needed food. Also, this was, you know, one of the toughest parts for me to wrap my head around. There were children, and this was, you know, a week or two before Christmas. All of their toys were gone. They weren't going to receive anything for Christmas. So, you know, we knew that we wanted to come with presents. We knew that we wanted to come with gifts.